So if I give a little bit of background, Agile is a way of working that has become quite prolific across lots of different industries, but it started off in tech in 2001, where a group of people got together and wrote the Agile Manifesto. And I think one of the really important things that I think about is that Agile was actually a response to a problem that they were experiencing in IT projects. So namely that they tended to be planned up front, delivered in quite a sequential way. And by the time that they came to market, they weren't actually relevant for business or user needs anymore. So perhaps if you can think about the pandemic, if you planned something before that and then delivered it a year later whilst the pandemic was happening, the industry and the business and users are completely different. Their needs have changed. So Agile is a way of working that responds to that by looking at creating iterative feedback loops and ways of working that create those feedback loops both within teams and product groups with users and stakeholders. And Agile coaches are there as the people who are well versed in that way of working or eventually become well versed in that. And they help teams to bring those ways of working to light and continuously improve their process. So I originally wanted to seek a role within a startup because I'd worked in a startup in Beijing where I was doing my master's, and I really liked that environment as it was fast paced. I was able to get a lot of autonomy and responsibility, and so that was kind of the direction that I started out on when I returned to London. And then in the process of that, I came across a tech startup who specialized in lean and agile project delivery. And I interviewed for a business strategy role there. And throughout the interview process, I got to know the kind of interviewers, and around kind of stage 3, they told me that their business direction had changed and they weren't looking for someone to go into this role, but they would really like to help me find a position. And I thought they were being very polite at the time, but what ended up happening was they suggested that I went for an Agile coaching role at one of their clients. And so I went for that, and that was successful. And what ended up happening was that they coached me in agile ways of working, and I ended up taking over the responsibility that they had as an external consultancy, but as an internal coach. So it was a real team effort, and I learned a lot along the way. I think there's this stereotype of the caricature of the person who works in tech. So that might be the lone kind of wolf male who sits in a dark room typing away at his keyboard. And I think if you have that image of tech, then that might not feel like a welcoming environment for someone who is not of that demographic. But I think actually that's a very inaccurate representation of what working in tech looks like. And tech is one of the spaces that are trying to be really intentional about ways of working. Hence you have people in roles like Agile Coaching, whose whole job description is to look at how people work together and how people collaborate. And so some of the values, specifically the Scrum values, such as openness, respect, courage, I think those really facilitate spaces where diverse voices are welcome, where people of different viewpoints come together to try and find a consensus that satisfies lots of different requirements. And I think those are the spaces that really kind of benefit, as you said, from diverse viewpoints. So if we can change the image of tech to one that's kind of a lot more vibrant, a lot more open, a lot more intentional about these things, I think maybe more people would consider coming into that place. In the past, jobs were about muscles, now they're about brains, but in the future, they'll be all about the heart. And I think that challenges traditional notions of leadership and success, but if you're able to do that internal work and collaborate with others and create good working environments, I think the possibilities are endless. So yeah, I'm really hopeful about what's to come.